One was all about the bookstore read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book Is Your Life, no other than Miss Michelle Maidenberg.
Nice to meet you and to have you on. I appreciate it.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Michelle. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. So I have a private practice in Harrison, New York, and I am the clinical director of a nonprofit that's called Through My Eyes. And it offers free clinically guided videotaping to chronically medically ill individuals who want to leave a video legacy for their children and loved ones. Um, I also teach at NYU, New York University, and it's a class in integrating mindfulness into clinical practice. And I am a author. So I authored two books, and one of them we're going to be discussing today. The second one is Free Your Child from Overeating, 53 Mind Body Strategies for Lifelong Health. And then I'm also a Psychology Today blogger. Um, and I do have a YouTube page as well. And, I'm on all the different social media outlets. What else can I say? I did a TED Talk on circumventing emotional avoidance, which is definitely the preface to my book. And I am the mother of four children. That's my greatest accomplishment.
Yes, indeed, Miss Michelle Maidenberg. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Ace Your Life implies both excellence and intentionality. What does acing life truly mean in the context of your book beyond superficial success?
Yeah. So ACE stands for acceptance, compassion, and empowerment. So the way the book is constructed is it starts out with talking about how our brain functions, our thoughts and our feelings, because people have a lot of misunderstandings about that, not really understanding, neurologically and physiologically how our brain functions, which leads to a lot of stuckness in our lives. And then I get into acceptance. And then the second chapter speaks about our values. And it's really a roadmap for decision making. And I, give exercises in order to extrapolate what the values are. And then we go into the specific values. And then acceptance, compassion, empowerment. I first talk about the barriers to each and then also how to integrate it. So it's really, I would say, like a roadmap for living your, again, living your best, your being your best self and living the life you want. Because again, we all get inundated with stuckness related to procrastination, anxiety, hopelessness. It kind of everybody has something. We all have something that we grapple with.
Very well said, Miss Michelle. Beautifully articulated. Why is now the critical moment of people to reclaim agency over their lives? What societal shift make this message essential?
That's a good question. There is so much going on in the world today. I'm not going to go into each complexity because there's so many different, opinions, and we're all struggling to some extent right now, whether it's politically, socially, economically, and on and on. And it's not only, it cuts across the world, I would say, at this moment. So people, who come into my practice, everyone is reporting feeling anxious, feeling stuck in some way. And it really helps you, again, to stay grounded because we could become so dysregulated and, when we're feeling uneasy and out of control and things being so uncertain. And that's what we're basically living with today. Not to mention social media contributes to it because there's so much thrown at us at one time. A lot of the messaging is conflictual. A lot of the messaging is confusing. And, so again, and everything's so fast paced. Life goes by so quickly. I just had my son's graduation and I was thinking, I actually did a recording, but I was saying to myself, Gosh, like, I remember when he was in kindergarten. I remember, like, when I dropped him off at college 4 years ago, and, like, where has the time gone? So every single day is precious, and life is so fleeting that we have this finite period of time, and we could choose to live it in the most meaningful way or not, and it's a choice that we make every single day.
It's a choice indeed, people. Miss Michelle, how do you define your best self and why is it concept often misunderstood?
Well, I think that's used, you know, it's in the media, live your life, be your best self. I think uniquely everybody gets to define what that is for themselves. And I have to say that it is really formulated based on your values because everybody's values are different. It really speaks for what's important to you, what guides your behavior, what you want to invest in on a daily basis, actions you want to take that's guiding your behavior. And like I said, that's different for everybody, so whether it's communication or family or dignity or kindness or thoughtfulness, everybody has their own set of values. So it's important to really understand what those are.
With countless self help books available, what gap does Age Your Life feel that readers won't find elsewhere?
That's a great question, too. I strive on personalizing my books. What does that mean? I sprinkle in some research so that there's some
Yes.
basis, which is so it's evidence based, and then I also very creatively, I hope, really partition messages again, give some didactic information, skills and tools, and then I use a lot of experiential tools to really help you to integrate it into your life. They're practical tools you could use on a daily basis. So I think having that combination is really important, so that you're walking away with so many skills and tools that you could actually use, when you're entering your own life on a daily basis. And I think that's different. I think some books, are pretty heavy on research and just give a lot of information. And then there's a lot of books out there, unfortunately, that I see that where people, it's very opiniony, it's very based on opinion. And a lot of people who are writing self-help books today, unfortunately, are not, don't even have necessarily the degree or the knowledge to back up their books. I think there's just a lot of people who are just conveying a lot of information without having, appropriate education and knowledge, etc. So I have studied for many, many, many years, and I've studied many theoretical frameworks and many modalities. I learned about neurobiology, and I could go on and on. I've been in school forever. um, but so each of those components are really important. And I think that, one of the things that I'm very proud of is people who read my book, they always give me feedback and they say, wow, like your book was so easy to read. It was geared towards somebody who's a little bit more sophisticated and wants the research. And it's also geared towards, kind of the layperson who really wants kind of this skills and tools. And it's very practical. And that is something I'm really proud of.
Age Your Life. Thank you, Miss Michelle, for sharing to the world.
You're welcome.
What's the first mental adjustment a reader must make to start living intentionally?
Mental adjustment. I don't think about it as a mental adjustment. I think it's a way of living, So for example, I'll just give you one example. Like I'm very, very hyper aware of what my core values are. And whenever I make a decision, and it could be as minute as walking in my building and deciding whether I'm going to hold the door open for somebody or not, because I'm going to rush to get to my office. And if I kind of scoot through the door really quickly and wait till somebody else gets the door, then I could save some time. But in that moment, I think to myself, how do I want to be? Who do I want to be? How do I want to represent myself? And I'll stop because kindness is so formative for me and thoughtfulness. I'll stop and I'll do it because that's how I want to be. And at the end of my day, when I'm doing an inventory and thinking about my values, I could actually feel proud that I do things. I take action. I don't just say it, I don't think it, I do it. Because action is where we build our confidence, where we build our dignity, where we build our self efficacy, our self love, and that's such a critical, part of who we are as humans.
How does your book address the fear of change or self doubt that holds people back?
Oh my goodness, that's huge. In each component, yeah, because in each component of acceptance, compassion, and empowerment, there are there are sociocultural components, there's personal, components, there's both internal and external to us that get in the way, that don't allow us to move past stuckness. When I say acceptance, right, self acceptance, it's not saying I'm wonderful. People are scared that they're going to live a life of mediocrity. That's not what self acceptance is. But there's things that get in the way. And I'll give you a quick example, right? Emotionality. There's
Yes.
so much emotional avoidance, which is what my TED talk is about, that goes on because our brains are wired to avoid discomfort and danger. So naturally, we're going to emotionally avoid negative emotions. So, in order for us to accept ourselves, we need to also accept our negative emotions. And most of us avoid, distract, deny, and on, all these things that we do because it's so painful to accept negative emotions. So in each chapter, I indicate what the barriers are, for each accepting, self-acceptance, self-compassion, and also empowerment, which is taking action, based on your values. So I talk about that because that's not going to allow us to really move through life in a way that's going to get through our stuckness.
Again, Miss Michelle, very well said.
Thank you.
Beautifully articulated. Beyond time management, how do you teach readers to optimize their energy for sustainable success?
Well, time management has to do, again, it's important to understand what's getting in the way of that. For everybody, it's a little bit different. Um, so you're really taking a very deep dive into understanding yourself better, and it increases your self awareness. It helps you to understand, rationalizations that you make for your behavior. I have a lot of charts. I have a lot of charts that help you to understand yourself better because we get inundated with negative core beliefs, with rationalizations, and on and on. But all of that is included. So you know exactly when you walk away from reading this book, you know exactly what's getting in your way. And time management is a big part of it. It could be time management is one thing, but it could be procrastination. It could be a whole host of other things that get in our way. Anger. Often we get stuck with anger or shutting down, our coping mechanisms, our adaptations. Those are other things that get in the way.
What's the number one obstacle preventing people from unleashing their best self, and how does your book dismantle it?
Yeah. So it's hard to say what the number one thing is. I think again, it's different for everybody. I don't pigeonhole people. Like no one is, we're all human and we all have very complex emotions. We have complex histories. Um, so it's hard to say what one barrier is, but everybody's unique in their own way, and it's important to find out for you what your barrier is so that you could, manage your life better. But I also see people who have parts of themselves that are inconsistent with other parts, right? We could be very, very advanced and successful in our career, but our home life is taking a nosedive, right? Or the opposite. We have a great family life, but for some reason we're stuck and we're not able to kind of advance in our career, for example. So those are things to kind of understand. We're not, we're not unidimensional, we're multidimensional. So it's important to understand all of those different parts.
Indeed, Miss Michelle, indeed. How does your book redefine failure as a part of growth process?
So, in order to live a life of empowerment, there isn't, if you think about the word failure, it doesn't exist. Because if for whatever reason you're trying to accomplish a goal or manage something and it doesn't come out according to how you planned or you wanted, there's things that you could do. You could recalibrate. You could, for example, I have like different methodologies in my book to help like reset people once they've, let's say, slipped in some way that hasn't gotten them through their, what they wanted to accomplish. But it's not never a failure, because if you could always, and that's a growth mindset, if you walk away with understanding that there's always something to learn out of every single circumstance or situation, you're going to take that information with you and you're going to apply it to your future accomplishments, right? Or goals. And that's going to help you to be more successful. Most people who are highly successful, they'll tell you they didn't get it right on the first try. It
Yeah.
took multiple tries, but they didn't give up and they learned something from their previous experiences. That's what they will tell you. And I know that's true for most people, that I speak to that are highly successful.
Yes, 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 and totally agree with you, Miss Michelle. Learn from the experience and learn from others. As an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Me specifically,
Yes.
so I have a lot of goals.
Yes.
I'm a person who like doesn't stop, and I'm proud of that. I love writing, and I'm very, very dedicated and committed to my writing. I have two books in the pike. One book I am collaborating with two other authors, which I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm super, super excited about it because it is very creative and innovative and helpful. So it's a book for couples. So I will tell you that. I'm not going to tell you the details about it. And then the second book is a book that I'm writing solo. But it is again a continuation and working on, stuckness, etc. So that's also very exciting. But right now, what I'm trying to do is building, and I really want to also continue to build my nonprofit through my eyes, because it is definitely something that has been so helpful and for people. So I really want to do that. So my writing, I want to continue my writing, my practice. I love my practice. It's something that I enjoy going to work every single day. I love working with my patients. Um, it's yeah, it's so rewarding. Like I said, I love going to work, and not a lot of not many people could say that. So I'm
Yeah.
proud of that as well. And I want to continue writing my Psychology Today blog. I want to continue teaching. I love teaching and educating practitioners. That's a big passion of mine as well. So those are my, I would say, general goals.
We are proud of you, Miss Michelle, and good luck to your goals and
Yeah,
looking forward for more success. What
thank
would
you.
be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Wow, that's a tough question. You know what? It's really never giving up no matter what. It's accepting whatever comes your way instead of seeing it as an obstacle, which is again will shut you down and will cause a lot of helplessness and hopelessness. It's literally, I see it as, like if you have like a boulder that's kind of in your way, right? If your eye and your lens is to go through the boulder, you're going to be stuck there because the boulder's too big, right? You can't get through it.
Yes.
But if you strategically think about other ways that you can manage, right? If plan A doesn't work, try plan B, try plan C. We have a whole alphabet. You could try all the way to Z. There's a lot of different ways to strategize. So if I see that boulder and it's not working for me, I'm going to take a right turn and walk around the boulder, or I'm going to climb above the boulder, but I'm going to get to the other end and I'm not going to give up no matter what. And it really has a lot to do with my self compassion, which I've worked on so much throughout the years. That I'm a human. I believe all humans are worthy and are blessed with being able to accomplish. And I believe the same thing about myself as well. So I'm gonna convey that message out there.
Thank you for your advice, Miss Michelle. And what personal experience or insight inspired you to write this book?
So it's actually a pretty interesting story. I This is the culmination of my life's work. So I've learned all of these skills and tools both through my education and working with people. So I love learning from people I work with. I'm learning something every day. But what's really interesting, back in the day when we had, business cards, this happened a couple of years ago before I wrote my book. It was astonishing. I turned, I had my business card because I just happened to look at it because I don't really use them anymore. And then I turned it around and it said ACE. And I forgot the C wasn't compassion, it was something else. I think it was commitment. I can't even remember, but it said ACE and it said acceptance, something, empowerment. And it was almost like in me. And I didn't even realize it, but I forgot that I wrote that on the back of my card. And I was like, wow, this is like meant to be, you know? So I feel like my writing and, things that I feel committed to and connected to, it's like in me. It's like a passion that I have that needs to be unleashed. And, it, it's called the golden shadow. We all have a golden shadow. Sometimes we're not supported or we don't have the resources where we're able to tap into that, but we all have it. It could be creative arts, it could be um, our ability to socialize, it could be our kindness and thoughtfulness, it could be advocacy, it could be anything. But we all have these wonderful parts of us that just need to be really unveiled. So everyone has it.
For sure, everyone has it, but you need to unleash, as
Yeah,
Miss Michelle
yeah,
talking about.
yeah,
Unleash the dragon, people. What's
yes.
one unfiltered lesson from your own journey to acing life that is in the book?
Something personal. Well, I've had a lot of adversity growing up. My parents divorced when I was 3. I went to 5 different elementary schools. I could go on and on. There was a
Yeah.
lot there was a lot of adversity, a lot of childhood adversity and, some more adversity as I was, growing older. And, I think I was fortunate because I did have that drive in me. I remember when I was a little girl and I used to like hug my teddy bear at night and I used to say, "This too shall pass." And I always saw a future ahead of me and I always believed in myself to some extent. And when things didn't work out, I always, strove again through my life lessons to improve, my life ahead of me. Um, but I think just all the adversity that I lived through, I also learned that I could get through hard things and that challenges, I don't call them failures, I call them challenges because failures stymie us and shut us down. Challenges, like think about the word, it's so much more empowering and it causes you then to move forward, not to get stuck.
Move forward for sure, and people let it go, let it go and live at the moment.
Yeah,
Miss
yeah.
Michelle, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and of course my food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 and fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in its third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in its fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Michelle, if readers take just one idea from Ace Your Life into their daily lives, what
Mhm.
would you want it to?
Really, my values chapter is so important to understand what your core values are so that you have a guide to action and decision making. So it's hard to explain on here, but hopefully you'll get the book and you'll get a
Yes.
chance to see it because I give very specific instructions on how to do that. And then once you are able to formulate your values, you do an exercise that will help you, again, to have this roadmap that I'm talking about.
Miss Michelle Maidenberg, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or your book itself? For sure,
Sure,
your upcoming books. Please do
sure.
invite them.
Sure. So you could check me out on my Psychology Today blog. So that's one where every month I publish a new article. Um, Ace Your Life, Unleash Your Best Self, and Live the Life You Want is my book. And my website, which is michellemaidenberg.com. And that has a lot of information about me.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Michelle Maidenberg because if you support her, more and more and more empowering books like this to come, more and more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Miss Michelle, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.